Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, this week's program, we are talking about something near and dear to my heart, and I trust yours as well, and that is the Constitution. Did you know the Constitution of the state of Kentucky is about to change in 30 days? We're going to be telling you what you need to know and what you can do about it. But before we get to that, let's talk about this week's sponsor, which is the book War of the Realms. When patriots are outlaws and believers are fugitives, it's time for a revolution. You can get this now at Amazon.com or Walmart.com. It's a powerful picture of America's founding, where it's at today, and where it might go in the future unless things change. We'll put a link for the description in this video. You can just click that link right here. It'll take you right to it. I hope you'll enjoy it. But you also notice that this week we're releasing Patriot Point a little bit early. We usually release on Fridays. We're doing it early this week because of a special event which is coming up. There's going to be a chance to meet a candidate running for a statewide elected office, and I'm sponsoring the event. The event is going to be held Friday, October the 7th at 5:30 p.m. It's going to be at 5000 Saloma Road in Campbellsville, Kentucky. This will be an opportunity for you to come and meet a candidate for the state treasurer's position. This is an incredibly important position that I think most people don't realize the value or the importance of it. So I'm sponsoring the event. I encourage you, come on out. We're going to have food. We're going to have these wonderful signs where if you want to help stop abortion in Kentucky, we'll have these free signs for you to pick up, 2 different types. I'm sponsoring the event. I hope that you'll have a chance to come out so we can actually know who we're voting for, what are the issues on this topic. Well, let's get into this week's topic, which is changing the Kentucky Constitution. There will be 2 different measures on your ballot next month that could alter the Kentucky Constitution. Let's start with the second one because it's a lot easier to get to. First of all, the second one would basically say there's no right to an abortion in Kentucky. It would make it illegal. It's only 2 sentences long. Here's the first sentence. Are you in favor of amending the Constitution of Kentucky by creating a new section of the Constitution to be numbered 26A to state as follows? And then this will be the change they want to put in there. To protect human life, nothing in this Constitution shall be construed to secure or protect a right to abortion or require the funding of abortion. We've mentioned this one before. It's incredibly important. If we want to make abortion illegal in Kentucky, now is going to be our one and maybe only chance to do that. This will be on the ballot this November. In about 1 month, we want to vote yes on amendment proposal number 2. And again, you can get signs for this at that event that I'm hosting this Friday, October the 7th. But now we're going to focus on the one that a lot of people are very confused about, and it is amendment proposal number 1 that would change the Constitution. And there are only these 2 constitutional amendments that'll be on your ballot. Number 2 we talked about. Now here's number 1. It's a little more complicated. Let me start by reading to you what exactly it says. Are you in favor of amending the present Constitution of Kentucky to repeal sections 36, 42, and 55 and replace those sections with new sections of the Constitution of Kentucky to allow the General Assembly to meet in regular session for 30 legislative days in odd-numbered years, for 60 legislative days in even-numbered years, and for no more than 12 additional days during any calendar year if convened by a joint proclamation of the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, with no session of the General Assembly to extend beyond December 31, and to provide that any act passed by the General Assembly shall become law on July the 1st of the year in which it was passed, or 90 days after passage and signature of the governor, whichever occurs later, or in cases of emergency when approved by the governor or when it otherwise becomes law under Section 88 of the Constitution. Well, isn't that a big mouthful of things to say? Now, let's break this down and explain what is this actually proposing? How does it change what is in Kentucky's current Constitution? And is this something that conservatives should really be for or against? Well, first of all, I'll just give you a hint. Andy Beshear is vehemently opposing amendment proposals number 1 and 2. And as a general rule, any policy that Andy Beshear is against, put me down as for that. So that's our first little clue that is probably something that conservatives would want. Now, here's how it changes the Constitution. Under the current Kentucky Constitution, the Kentucky legislative branch, the General Assembly, is allowed to meet for 30 working days during odd-numbered years and 60 working days during even-numbered years. What this would allow would be for them to come in for 12 extra days throughout the year. The reason this has really been brought up is because here 2 years ago, Andy Beshear, after the legislature was out of session, just started declaring himself king, and he was making up laws, acting like he was a legislative branch. He was deciding the punishment for these as if he was a judicial branch, and just became an overall dictator. And because the legislature never wants that to happen again, because they can't come into session unless the governor calls them in. And of course, after repeated public calls, Andy did not call any of them in because they would stop everything that he was doing. So this would give an opportunity for the legislature by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House to call themselves back into session for any 12 days throughout the year. This would be the 12 days after when they're normally in session anyway. Now, some people are saying, well, how much is this actually going to cost us? Well, here's actually some of the cost that would be associated with this. First of all, how much do our senators and representatives earn? It is not just a base salary. They're actually paid per day that they are there, or the term per diem. And they earn $188 a day for their salary. So you would have that times 138 members of the legislature. Now, in addition to this, they get $170 for expenses per day. And that does not include their gas, which they get an allowance, or all the staff in the building, which would have to come in extra as well. So even though I think it would be good on the good side, this would allow the legislature to keep a governor in check, where he can't just go crazy doing different stuff, because they can call themselves back in for a certain limited number of days, which that would keep them from being what is called a full-time legislature. Would still be a part-time legislature. 12 days does not equal a full year, even though Andy Beshear is saying, oh, this will make them full-time. By no stretch of the imagination does 12 days equal a full-time year job getting paid for. Now, so I think it would be a good measure. I do, however, think the legislative branch could have done this better. I had proposed back, it's been 2 years ago now, that if we're going to go in to keep a governor in check, a better solution, if they're already working up to 60 days a year, why, instead of squishing those 60 days all into the first few weeks of the year, how about you just work for 1 week a month? 5 working days a month. 5 days a month times 12 months equals 60 working days. And you wouldn't have to pay to come in for any extra days at all. It would be at no expense to the people more than what we are already paying. It also would slow down the legislative process. Right now, you'll have 1,000 or up to 1,500 bills squished into just those first several weeks of the year. But if we had the same number of working days, it would slow down how quickly these bills are being proposed and spread that out throughout the year. This would, number one, give the legislators more time to look at it, analyze it. It would also give the people more time to know, hey, this is what's coming up, whether it's good, whether it's bad, to be in contact with their representatives saying, hey, represent me by saying yes or no on whatever the issue of the day is. I believe it would have been less expensive for Kentucky. It would have been better for the people and really the legislators, and it would have slowed it down. It also has the bonus of allowing the legislators to actually be with their families instead of having to take a quarter of the year away from them every year. But that's not what they proposed, so this is what they're doing. They want to say, we want to have the ability to add 12 days to the legislative calendar, to be added in wherever we want, but they don't have to call themselves in for this. Overall, I think it's a good measure. So those are the two changes that are proposed to Kentucky's Constitution. Proposal number 1, to change the legislative days where they can call themselves in, and proposal number 2, which basically makes abortions illegal in Kentucky. I would be for both of these, especially that second one. Don't forget, if you would like to come out to the event to meet the statewide office treasurer candidate, I'm hosting the event for that this Friday, October the 7th. And I hope you can come out, get some of those yard signs there talking about how we want people to vote yes on Amendment 2 to put an end to abortion in Kentucky. So until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.